Hi, my name is Seth. I was asked to share my story through art, and so I decided to do one of those draw my life type things, but I creatively named it Draw My Conversion Story instead. So I was born in Bowling Green, Kentucky in 1999 to an amazing family of 6, and life was pretty average. Not necessarily boring, but quite average. My interests were pretty well rounded. I loved drawing, playing video games, I loved doing anything outside, and I especially had a love for the game of basketball. It was very important to me. Fast forward to high school, and there I unfortunately learned that basketball had a hard time loving me back. But I was persistent in my passion for the game. And through countless hours of practice year-round and a few injuries, I completed my high school basketball experience. And I completed my career with a staggering 4 points and 13 total minutes played. In case you were wondering, one regulation-length high school game lasts 32 minutes. So, to me, I understand this seems like a failure, and there was a lot of times where I was convinced that it was. But unlike many players in my situation, I stuck with it, and I learned to work hard, and I became a better player, and overall a better person, and a tougher person in general, so it was cool. Out of everything I gained in my high school basketball experience, what I am most thankful for is my friendship with a guy named Jonah. Jonah was exactly like me. He worked harder than most of the other players, but he never really got to play. Me and Jonah became great friends, and we pushed each other to become better than we were the day before. And although we didn't play in any games, me and Jonah tried our hardest to lead our team in practice and from the bench. I admired Jonah's leadership, because he not only pushed our team to become better basketball players, but he pushed us to become better people too. Our teammates all looked up to Jonah, and I was very proud to be his friend, and I found myself constantly trying to follow in his footsteps. At the time, I knew Jonah was a member of the LDS Church, and so I would ask him about all his unusual practices, like how he wouldn't drink sweet tea or swear, or how he wouldn't practice on Sunday. This is what fascinated me the most. By not practicing with the team on Sundays, our coach wouldn't let Jonah dress varsity, and Jonah knew this, but he still declined to practice on Sunday. Although I never really asked him directly, I couldn't understand why he wouldn't just practice for a couple harmless hours and then he'd get to dress during the games. But I found his faith strangely powerful because of this, and it left me interested in his devotion to God. Once we graduated, Jonah left for his mission across the country, and I went to college 15 minutes from my house at Western Kentucky University. I lost my best friend for a little while, but my admiration for his devotion remained unchanged. 2 years of college goes by, and other than the occasional casual email, I don't really stay in contact with Jonah that often, which was definitely my fault. But I started doing research in Jonah's dad's lab at Western as a biology major where he worked, which was super cool. It was great. At the time, Jonah was nearing the end of his mission, and I was very excited to see him soon. And then one day, Jonah's dad gives me a copy of the Book of Mormon and tells me that Jonah had sent it. Inside was a letter telling me how great church and how great the message of the book was. And then Jonah's father then asked me if I'd be interested in having a lesson about the gospel with the missionaries at his house sometime soon. I told him sure, but I was mentally terrified. You see, I was a 20-year-old kid, and I'd been to a Baptist church maybe 6 times, where I wasn't going just to play basketball. And my family, although amazingly supportive and loving, never really attended church, never really talked about God. It was a very awkward topic for me, so I struggled with the idea that I'd have to talk about it. But I went to the lesson and met 2 amazing sister missionaries, Sister DeGraw and Sister McKay. I remember feeling more comfortable with them as we talked, but I never really let my guard down, and I impatiently waited for the end. I thanked them for their time and concern after it was over, and I thanked Jonah's dad for having me, and I'd hoped that I'd never have to do it again. A few days goes by, and Jonah's dad offers me another lesson with the missionaries. I wanted very badly to say no or come up with an excuse, but I said yeah again. They were so kind and supportive, and I learned so much from the lessons, but each time I wouldn't let go of the anxiety for some reason. I went to a sacrament meeting for the first time, and I was too on edge to feel comfortable. It was strange though, because each time after a lesson on the way home, I'd always feel a little bit lighter and a little more at peace from talking. Sadly, it wasn't enough, and as research work and school became busier, I used it as an excuse every time the missionaries would reach out to me. I became cold for a month, and I avoided talking about it as much as possible. And then one day at work, out of absolutely nowhere, Sister McKay and her exchange companion came in. They knew I worked at the bowling alley, but she never really told me they were coming. She asked me how I was, and we talked for a minute, and as she was leaving, she looked at me and she said, "So Seth, you're coming to church tomorrow, right?" Without enough time to make an excuse, I had to say, "Sure." It was a good move, Sister McKay. It was a good move. After the church service, the sisters asked me how I was after not hearing from me very often. I confessed that I was a little uncomfortable with religion and taking such big steps so quickly with my background. And I don't remember how, but we settled on another time to meet and talk. They were very sympathetic and it was very cool. Very slowly became more comfortable with the gospel, and the missionaries became some of the best friends that I had ever had. I opened up to them more as we talked and had lessons, but I still struggled with the idea of joining the church and accepting Christ. At the time it just seemed like too big of a step for me. But then Jonah finally came home from his mission, and I was very excited to see him. When he came home, he picked up right where he left off in high school and continued to challenge me to become a better person. I continued to have lessons, and the things I was learning made sense and resonated on a level I thought never possible for me. I was so moved by these things I couldn't hardly sleep, and I'd almost entirely lost my appetite, which is quite unusual for me. I couldn't understand what was happening, but I knew what I was doing was important. And then one Thursday in August, during a lesson with the missionaries, I was particularly troubled. I didn't know what to do with myself and the things I was learning. Then after they said something testifying about how much they loved Jesus Christ, everything finally cultivated all at once, and I realized that all I'd ever wanted was to feel that love too and keep learning. And so in pursuit of that, I was finally baptized 3 days later, on Sunday, August 25th, surrounded by everyone that I had loved and come to love. And on that day, I learned and testified of Christ's love for us. It remains one of the happiest and most uplifting experiences of my life, and I am very grateful for it, and I'll always remember it. And so to this day, I don't know how it happened, but I know my heart was softened in the summer of 2019 to learn the words of God with the help of some amazing missionaries and friends who I'll always love. In the summer of 2019, I took upon myself the name of Christ, and I'll carry him with me for the remainder of this life and for eternity in the next. And so to my family, and especially my mother, who I love very much, I feel impressed to tell you that my decision was not made thinking only of myself. It is my strong belief that I was meant to learn these things for you as well. You see, the moment I became comfortable with thinking and talking about God was the day I realized that his love for me, no matter whose approval I'd have, would remain constant. And so to my mother and family, I pray nearly every night for the day you can begin to know your love for the Savior without worrying about the approval of others. I know things are complicated and people have gotten in your way of feeling that love in the past. And I know our family isn't exactly normal, but we have each other as God does, and that's all that will ever matter to me. I won't try to claim that it's easy, because I've had my share of struggles, as you will. But you're stronger than you give yourself credit for, and I hope to see you one day at church, sitting next to me. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. This has been Draw My Conversion Story, Seth Edition.